Hello everyone! I've been getting a lot of requests asking me to show how I make these sheet music videos. So I'm making this video to explain that. I've also gotten a lot of song requests for songs from different artists that I don't personally listen to. And since this channel is just a passion project, I only really write sheet music for the songs that I'm personally interested in. So if you want sheet music for a song that you like, you can transcribe it yourself if you follow this tutorial. Please note that I will focus exclusively on drum sheet music in this video. So I won't talk about how to transcribe other instruments. I'm also not a professional, I just do this for fun, and I'm just looking forward to sharing what I've learned over this past year with you guys so you can transcribe drum sheet music for yourself. If you're only interested in one part, there are timestamps in the description so you can find what you're looking for. So to make these videos, I use Musescore Studio, which you can see right here. Musescore is a free program that you can use to transcribe music. You can download and install Musescore via the link in the description. As of recording this video, the create video function of Musescore is actually broken for the newest version. So if you want to create a video, you're gonna need to install Musescore version 4.5. So not 4.6, it doesn't work with 4.6, but 4.5 works just fine. You can download older versions of Musescore right here. Note that there are actually two different websites. There's musescore.com and musescore.org. Musescore.org is the website of the transcription software Musescore Studio, while musescore.com is a website on which people can upload and share their transcriptions. While you're here, you will also want to create an account, since you will need one later on to create a video. Once you have installed Musescore, the first thing we will do is create a template file for drum scores. To create a template file, you must first create a new score. Choose your instrument by clicking percussion, unpitched, and then adding a large drum kit to your score. To start creating our template file, the first thing we can do is edit the text at the top of the page. You can add the instrument, and if you're going to do multiple songs from the same artist, you can also add the artist on the right. The plus button in the top bar allows you to add more text, so you can add your own name in the bottom left. The next thing we're going to configure are the palettes. On the left side of the program, there is a list of palettes. You can hide all palettes we don't need for drums. To hide a palette, click the three dots and click Hide Palette. To add a palette, click the button on the top and add the ones you need. In order to transcribe drum sheet music, we're going to need the following palettes: grace notes, noteheads, tremolos, time signatures, tempo, dynamics, articulations, text, repeats and jumps, bar lines, and layout. Next, we can add the tempo and the dynamics. You can do that by selecting the first measure and then selecting tempo, and then just double-clicking the symbol or dragging it and dropping it where you want it to go. Adding a dynamic works the exact same way. Just open the dynamics palette, select the measure where you want the symbol to go, and then double-click it. At this point, we can also add some more measures, so we don't have to add those later on. Simply right-click on a measure and select Insert Measures, and then add something like 100. Now we want to configure the style of the notes. So go to Format, Style, Beams, and enable Flatten All Beams. Then go to Rests, set the default vertical offset to 2 spaces, and enable Merge Matching Rests. To edit the cymbals, first enter input mode by pressing N. Now click the Customize Drum Set button, select the symbol you want to change, and now you can select the note head as well as its position. You can also change the default voice as well as the stem direction in this menu. So you might be used to different cymbals than I am. I linked a list of notation in the description that pretty much aligns with how I transcribe drums. But you can change the cymbals to be anything you like. I, for instance, will change the side stick or cross stick to a circled note instead of a slashed note. You should now just go through all of these options here and make sure that all of the cymbals are the way that you like them. When it comes to transcribing ghost notes, there unfortunately is no extra symbol for them here. So I just use the electric snare and change the note head to a filled half minim note head, and I then just add the brackets later on. Next we can set up the sound. To do this, bring up the mixer, which you can find at the very top. Here you can choose different sound fonts that Musescore provides, or even use VST instruments if you already own some. I personally use Groove Agent from Steinberg. Specifically, I use Rocket 3. If you're using VST instruments, you may have to make some adjustments. For Rocket 3, for instance, I modify a sound to get a ghost note sound. I just copy the snare pad and lower the volume. There are also some sounds that might not be on the pads that Musescore triggers, so you might have to move those around. But don't worry if you don't own a VST instrument, just use the sound fonts that Musescore provides. You can try them all out right here and select one that you like. Alright, now our template file is basically done, so you can go ahead and save your file. I recommend calling it something like one_template, because the number in the front helps you to find the file, since it will always be at the top of your folder. Now if we want to create a new score, all we need to do is click on Open Other down here, and then just copy your template file and rename it to whatever you want. Now we can actually talk about how to write notes. There are two different ways to write notes in Musescore. You can see both of them up here. You can either input by note name or input by duration. Inputting by duration allows you to select the value of the note first and the duration second. I personally use the input by note name mode, so I will focus on that here. If you want more information on the input by duration mode, you can check out the official Musescore tutorials that are linked to in the description. Now to write notes, you first need to enter input mode. You can either press the pen icon or you can press N on your keyboard. Then select the note duration at the top of your screen or by pressing the corresponding number on your keyboard. I'm going to press 4 to select 8th notes. With the note duration selected, you can simply click where you want the note to go. If you hold Shift while hovering over the note, you can select a different variant, like an open hi-hat. Alternatively, you can use the percussion panel, which is this lower window that shows up when you enter input mode. You can select where you want the note to go with your left and right arrows, select the note duration, and simply click on the pad of the note value that you want to input. You can click the pad multiple times to add multiple notes, like hi-hats. For now, let's make a simple drum beat. I'm going to add a snare on beat 2 and 4 and then some bass drums. Notice that some of the drums are blue while others are green. This indicates the voice which that note belongs to. I will talk more about voices later. While you are not in input mode, you can select any note by clicking on it or with the left and right arrow keys, and change what drum is being played with the up and down arrow keys. You can also change the duration of an existing note with the numbers on your keyboard while the note is selected. If you make the duration of an existing note shorter, Musescore will automatically fill the space with the rests. You can copy and paste segments of your song by highlighting the segment, pressing Ctrl+C, and then pasting it where you want it by pressing Ctrl+V. To select multiple measures, you can hold Shift while selecting, and to select only a part of a measure, you can hold Shift while clicking on individual notes. Now let's look at some more notes. Let's say we want to put a ghost note between these two hi-hats. First, make some space here for a ghost note by selecting the first hi-hat note, pressing 3 to turn it into 16th note, which automatically inserts the 16th rest after the note. And then we can press N to go into input mode. Make sure you have the 16th note selected, and then place the electric snare either through the percussion panel, or by using Shift, or simply by placing a regular snare and then selecting the note and changing the value with the arrow keys. Then open the notehead palette and click on the brackets with the note selected. If you want to create more ghost notes, you can also just copy this note and the brackets will stay attached. To add an accent to a note, you can either press this icon at the top or use the shortcut by pressing Shift and V. If you want to transcribe someone using the Moeller technique on the hi-hat, you could accent every other hi-hat beat like so. I personally don't do this because it adds a lot of clutter, and it's not so much a matter of what is being played, but rather how it's being played. In my opinion, it's simply easier to know when to use the Moeller technique by knowing the song, but you can of course transcribe it with the accents if you want to. Let's copy this entire beat and have it played on the right cymbal. So copy it, and then select all the hi-hats by holding Ctrl and clicking on the notes. Now you can change the hi-hats into right cymbals with your up and down arrows. We can use this symbol from the articulations palette to notate that the right is supposed to be played like a crash. To add a flam to a note, select the note, go to the Grace Notes palette and click on this symbol. To add triplets, you can select the note you want to split up into triplets, for instance a quarter note, and then press Ctrl 3. You can also create sextuplets or quintuplets by pressing Ctrl 5 and Ctrl 6 respectively. You can add dotted notes by pressing this symbol with a note selected, or by pressing the period key. To add a swing feeling to a rhythm, you can go to the tempo palette and click on swing. To go back to a straight feeling, there's another entry in the same menu that says straight. To change the precise feeling of the swing part, you can right-click on the text and select System Text Properties. The swing ratio setting allows you to select how much the second note is swung, and you can also select whether the text applies to 8th or 16th notes. To mark a crash that is supposed to be choked, you can simply add text through the text palette, which you can edit by double-clicking it. Note that Musescore won't follow this instruction, so it's merely visual and not represented in the audio. To add a roll on the snare, you can use the tremolos palette. Select the note you want to turn into a roll. If you want to have it simply play 2 notes at twice the speed, select the first option. So for instance, the 16th note snare will be turned into 2 30-second notes. The other options allow you to create faster or longer rolls. So we could turn these 8th notes into a 5-stroke roll by using the second option, since it turns 8th notes into 30-second notes. You can change the tempo by simply clicking at the point where you want the tempo to change and selecting the appropriate symbol from the tempo palette. If we want to gradually increase or decrease the tempo, there unfortunately is no easy way to do this in Musescore as of yet. So if you simply want to print your sheet music, you can just add an accelerando. But if you want to create a video and need it to sync up exactly with the song, it becomes more difficult. The way I do it is I create a tempo change every beat and then adjust each value accordingly. We will of course want to hide these in-between changes, which you can do by selecting them and then pressing V. You can change the time signature through the time signatures palette. Select the measure that has the different time signature and click on the symbol. Be aware that it is being applied to all the following measures, so if only one measure is different, you need to change the time signature again. You can adjust the loudness with the Dynamics tab. Crescendos and decrescendos are gradual changes in loudness. They can be applied by selecting the area by holding Shift and then clicking on the symbol. You can also make loudness changes that are not visible by selecting them and hiding them by pressing V. Okay, let's talk about voices. In Musescore, notes can belong to different voices. Musescore allows up to 4, but we really only need voices 1 and 2. By default, everything the hands play is put into voice 1, which is blue and has the stem pointing upward, and everything the feet play is put into voice 2, which is green and has the stem pointing downward. For some fills or rhythms, it makes sense, however, to either put all of the notes into voice 1 or to put the snare into voice 2. For most beats, this comes down to personal preference, but there are examples where one way of writing voices is clearly better than the others. Let's select a note in voice 2. Make sure it can be added into voice 1 by making some space for it if necessary. So here we will change this quarter note into an 8th note so that there's space. Press this button or use the shortcut Ctrl Alt and 1 to add the note into voice 1, and likewise pressing Ctrl Alt and 2 will put the note into voice 2. In general, I personally prefer splitting the hands and the feet into 2 different voices, as it is by default. This makes it easier to read in my opinion, and can help you figure out a beat by just playing the hands or the foot pattern isolated. I only change this for specific beats that are easier to read with one or the other notation. Ultimately, this comes down to your personal preference though. Let's look at an example where it is best to put everything into voice 1. This is the case with beats or fills where the feet often play notes while the hands have rests. And you can see that having everything in one voice is much easier to read. The other option, where the snare is put into voice 2, can be used when the cymbal is playing continuously, like in this example here. Sometimes this can look cleaner, but I almost never use this option. Lastly, you can also change the stem direction independent of the voice by selecting the stem and then pressing X. Alright, now that we've covered all of the essentials, we can start actually transcribing a song. There are different ways of listening to a song, and they are not all equally useful when transcribing drums. You could listen to a song on Spotify or as an MP3, but I recommend using YouTube. On YouTube you can skip forward and backward with the arrow keys and the J and L keys. You can also listen to the song at a slower speed, which can be extremely useful in helping you figure out what's being played. If there is a music video or a live video, you can also look at what is being played to help you figure out parts that are difficult to hear. Once you've created your new file and named it, you'll want to add the BPM. You can often find the BPM of your song by searching it online, but if you can't, you can simply start a metronome and continue adjusting it until it syncs up with your song. Now you can start transcribing your song. I recommend going one bar at a time, listening to the hi-hat or the right cymbal first and transcribing that, then adding the snare and the bass drum. But of course, the method of transcribing is going to depend on the beat being played. Once you're done transcribing all of the notes, you should get rid of unnecessary rests. Sometimes a note should be longer, and we can get rid of a rest that way. However, in the primary voice, not all rests can be deleted, since we of course always have to fill the measure. It is however possible to hide notes or rests by pressing V. If there are extra rests in the second voice, you can always delete them, so you need to make a choice on which rests are necessary and which are not. I generally started following the rule that quarter note rests are not really necessary, but everything smaller is. To finish the score, go to Format and Style. Here we can make some adjustments to the layout and spacing. The first thing you can consider is multi-measure rests, which you can find under the Rests tab. These can save a lot of space in some pieces. For videos, however, I have learned that it's just better to leave these off. But if you want to print your sheet, this is a good idea. Next, you can adjust the measure width so that the last line is full, as well as the distance between the lines so that the last page is full. So again, under Style, you want to go to Spacing, and you want to adjust the minimum measure width so that the last line is full. And then you want to adjust the minimum system distance so that the last page is full. Now your score is basically finished. Of course, you can always go over your song again and see if you can spot any mistakes. I want to add that there's not always a right and a wrong way to transcribe a song. It really depends on your goal, whether you're more interested in the studio version or a specific live version, how or if you want to transcribe electronic drum parts, if you want to adapt the style of the drummer, who you are writing the sheet music for and their capabilities. All these factors affect how you write your score, and they are individual and specific. If you're writing sheet music mostly for yourself or a student, make sure you consider the skill level necessary, or in other words, the playability of the song. Now that the score is done, we can export it. You have the option to export your score as a PDF if you want to print it. To create the video later, we will now export an MP3 and upload the score to musescore.com. This is where you'll need to be logged into your Musescore account. Make sure you select Upload as a new score, since otherwise your next score will overwrite this one because we are working with a template file. You can name it, select the song it's based on, and publish it. Once it's published, you can create a video that either gets directly uploaded to YouTube or sent to your email. If you want to create a video with music, have the video sent to your email. Download it with the link they sent you. It can take up to an hour for the video to get generated, but usually it only takes a few minutes. For editing videos, I highly recommend DaVinci Resolve, since it is all that you need and is free. Create a project folder and drag the video file and the Musescore audio we exported in there. Now you will also need the audio of the song, which you can purchase as a download online. Create a new project and drag all of the files into it. Then make sure they are all lined up. Delete the audio from the video, since the audio quality from the video is terrible. Now you will notice that the video doesn't show the first line of the next page by default. If you want that, there is some more work necessary. Cut the video every time the blue bar moves to the next line. Then copy the entire video, delete the first 3, and then every other one. Crop these so that only the top is visible, and freeze them, since we only need the first frame anyway. Then drag them over to the original video, such that the first part of the copies is lined up with the second part of the original. Now make sure they all line up perfectly, and cut them or drag them if they don't fit. Now you can always see what you have to play next. To have enough time at the start, take a freeze frame from the very beginning, drag it back into your project, and simply put it before your video. You can also add a title and an end screen if you want. If you want to add a click track, you will have to record or generate one. If you don't want to spend money, you can use free recording software like Audacity to record a metronome from a website like the one I linked to in the description, and then just drag that MP3 into DaVinci Resolve. I personally use Cubase for these click tracks since I already own the software, and it also allows me to create gradual tempo changes. Now you can sync up the click track and separate the count in from the rest. To create a drums only video, mute the click track and the song and then export. To create a video with the drums playing alongside the music, unmute the song. Now if you want to create a drumless video, you will also need to get a drumless version of the song. For many 21 Pilots songs, there are often already drumless versions on YouTube. If there aren't any, you can use an AI stem splitter to split the drum stem from the rest of the song. Voice AI is a free way to do this, but you could also use Spectral Layers or Cubase 15. If you really want to get deep into this topic, you can cleanly separate stems with a program like Spectral Layers if you really want to put in the effort, for example if you want to play these songs live. But for these drum videos, I just go with the automatically generated version, since it's good enough for practice. Once you have the drumless song, you can drag it into DaVinci Resolve, sync it up, mute the original song, and unmute the click track. Then you can export a drumless version of the song. So that's everything. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I really want to thank the people who support me on Buy Me a Coffee, and I want to thank you for watching.